Chloe, I can't make it. Your sister's career event takes priority.
You're choosing not to walk me down the aisle.
Don't be selfish, Chloe. Dad's client is a multi-million account. Party's off!
We invited his entire family.
No one's turning back. We'll celebrate you. Follow me.
You let a stranger take my place?
He showed up. You didn't. She planned it, forced your choice.
Read it.
A father isn't the man who gave her life. He's the man who shows up for it.
I missed my daughter's wedding. I was wrong. Please give me a chance to make this right.
You destroyed this family to steal the spot.
If you want a relationship, it's on my terms. We won't speak of Megan. Respect me, my husband, my life, or this is our last conversation.
My name is Chloe. I'm 29, and I'm a marketing executive who clawed her way up from nothing. My wedding day should have been the ultimate proof that I'd finally made it. The beautiful venue, the perfect dress, the man I love waiting for me. It was all supposed to be a fairy tale ending. But as I stood there, moments before walking down the aisle, my father called me. He wasn't calling to wish me luck. He called to say, "Chloe, I can't make it. Your sister's career party is more important." The gut punch of those words left me breathless, feeling utterly alone in a room full of people. But what my father didn't know was that his betrayal triggered a chain of events that would expose years of lies. If you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family, let me know where you're watching from. And hit that like and subscribe button, because you're not going to believe who actually walked me down that aisle. The moment my beat-up Honda Civic crossed the Philadelphia city limits, I felt like I could finally breathe. Allentown wasn't just a place I grew up. It was a cage built of low expectations and quiet disappointments. Philadelphia? This was anonymity. It was a sprawling concrete jungle where no one knew my name, my history, or the fact that my own father thought a student loan was a better investment than his daughter. This was my blank slate, and I was determined to write a masterpiece on it. I started at the bottom of a fast-paced marketing firm downtown, junior associate. The title didn't matter. What mattered was the work. For the first time in my life, I was in an environment where the only thing that counted was results. There was no golden child, no black sheep. There was just the grind. And I thrived in it. While other people my age were out at bars on a Thursday night, I was in my cubicle, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the burning desire to prove my father wrong. To prove everyone wrong. My apartment saw less of me than my office did. My social life was practically non-existent. Liam, my rock through college, was the only one who truly understood. He'd bring me dinner at the office at 9 p.m., not to pull me away, but just to sit with me in silence while I finished one more proposal. He knew this wasn't just a job for me. It was an escape. It was my armor. And it started to pay off. Slowly at first. A compliment from a senior manager, being trusted with a slightly bigger client. Then I was promoted to team lead, then associate manager. Each step up the ladder was another brick in the wall I was building between my present and my past. At work, I wasn't the sensitive daughter or the overachieving one. I was just Chloe, the one who could turn a failing campaign around, the one who saw angles nobody else did. The one who always delivered. 2 years in, my boss, David, a sharp, no-nonsense guy in his 50s, called me into his office. He told me I was winning the Employee of the Year award at the company's annual dinner. I remember just staring at him, speechless. He said, "Chloe, you have a hunger I haven't seen in a long time. You don't just want to win, you have to. Keep that fire. It'll take you anywhere you want to go." That night, standing on a small stage holding a glass plaque, I felt a warmth that no family gathering had ever given me. It was the warmth of earned respect. My family, of course, had no real concept of what I was doing. When I told them I was promoted to marketing director at 27, my father's response over the phone was a distracted, "Oh, that's nice. Is the pay okay?" My sister Megan would just say things like, "Wow, must be nice to have so much time for work." a backhanded comment implying I had no life. They didn't see the strategy meetings that went past midnight. They didn't see the weekends spent analyzing market data. They saw what they wanted to see. The daughter who was just getting by. The quiet one. The one who took care of herself. Then came the campaign that changed everything. We landed a massive make-or-break client. A legacy tech company trying to rebrand for a younger audience. It was a mess. Their previous agency had tanked their image. Everyone in our firm was terrified of the account. Everyone except me. I saw the potential. I worked for 6 months straight. I'm not exaggerating. I lived and breathed this client. I assembled a small, dedicated team, and we basically moved into the office. We brainstormed until our brains felt like mush. We built a strategy from the ground up, something bold, risky, and completely different. It was the biggest gamble of my career. The day of the final presentation to the client's board, I was running on 4 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. But as I spoke, I felt a strange calm. I knew my stuff. I knew this would work. After our presentation, the CEO, a woman notorious for her tough demeanor, just looked at me for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across her face. "Well," she said, "it seems we've finally found someone who gets it." We won the account, a multi-million-dollar contract. The celebration at the office was huge, but the real celebration happened 2 weeks later, quietly, on my phone. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through emails, when a notification popped up. A direct deposit from my company. I opened my banking app, expecting my usual paycheck. But the number I saw, it made my vision go blurry. It didn't seem real. I closed the app and opened it again. It was still there. $150,000. A bonus. My bonus. My first thought wasn't about a new car or a fancy vacation or designer clothes. My first thought was a single word. Freedom. The very next day, I didn't go shopping. I went online to my student loan provider. I typed in the entire remaining balance, $26,412.13, and I hit Pay Now. Watching that balance drop to zero felt better than any purchase I could ever make. It was the sound of a chain breaking. With the rest of the money, I called a financial advisor, a real one. We sat down, and for 2 hours he treated me like an intelligent, capable adult. We talked about mutual funds, retirement accounts, and a high-yield savings account for a future down payment on a home. My own home. As I signed the paperwork, I felt a power I had never known. It was the power of self-sufficiency. And here's the most important part. My secret weapon. I didn't tell my family. Not a word. A few weeks later, my dad called. The usual superficial chat. "How's work?" he asked. "It's good, keeping busy," I said. "Making enough to get by in the big city?" he added, with that familiar, slightly condescending tone. "I'm doing okay," I replied, the understatement of the century. They had no idea. In their minds, I was still the girl who needed a loan for her first year of college, the one who was probably living paycheck to paycheck. And I let them believe it, letting them underestimate me. It was the smartest move I ever made. That secret wasn't just about money, it was about independence. It was the quiet knowledge that I had built my own lifeboat, and I would never, ever need them to throw me a rope again. Life with Liam was a world away from the one I grew up in. It was stable. It was kind. On our 5th anniversary, he took me back to the little Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated my college graduation all those years ago, the one his parents had arranged. And there, next to my tiramisu, was a small velvet box. He didn't just ask me to marry him, he told me all the reasons why. He talked about my strength, my creativity, and my kindness. things my own family had never once acknowledged. Of course, I said yes. For one perfect evening, I let myself just be happy, without the shadow of my family looming over me. That happiness began to fade the next morning when I called my father. After I shared the news, there was a pause. A pause that was just a little too long. "Well, congratulations," he finally said, his tone flat, businesslike. "He seems like a good guy. Have you set a date?" No excitement, no joy, just logistics. It was the same tone he used to discuss a quarterly report. My sister Megan responded to my text with a flurry of fake enthusiasm and too many exclamation points. "OMG, congrats! Little sis! So happy for you!" The words were right, but the feeling was all wrong. It felt like she was congratulating me for winning a game she was also playing, and losing. Despite the lukewarm reception, we pushed forward with the wedding plans. We have set the date for June 15th, 9 months from now. When I asked my father if he would walk me down the aisle, for a fleeting moment, I heard a flicker of the dad I used to know. "I'd be honored, Chloe," he said, and that single sentence gave me a dangerous dose of hope. But then, the strange calls from Megan started. They began subtly, once, every few weeks. "Hey, just checking in," she'd say, her voice unnaturally cheerful. "So, have you and Liam started looking at houses yet? The market's crazy right now." I'd tell her we were happy in our apartment. A week later, another call. "I was just thinking about your job. You must be doing pretty well to afford a wedding in Philadelphia. Did you get a big raise or something?" I'd give a vague answer. Each call felt less like a conversation and more like an interrogation disguised with small talk. She was probing, digging for information about my finances, my stability. It was unsettling. It put a knot in my stomach that I couldn't quite explain. My father's calls became more infrequent, and when we did speak, he seemed distant. His questions echoing Megan's. "Are you sure you can handle the cost of this wedding, Chloe? They can get expensive." It felt coordinated. It felt like they were building a case for something, but I didn't know what. Then, about 5 months before the wedding, Megan's social media posts began. Vague, cryptic updates. "Big things happening in June. Can't wait to share," accompanied by pictures of her looking at venues, at country clubs. When I asked her about it, she was dismissive. "Oh, it's just a little work thing. Nothing for you to worry about." But my gut screamed that I should be worried. A cold sense of dread started to creep in, a familiar feeling from my childhood. The feeling that a rug was about to be pulled out from under me. I tried to ignore it. I focused on my wedding, on Liam, on the happy future we were building, far away from the games and manipulations of my past. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself they wouldn't. They couldn't. Not this time. The final betrayal wasn't a single explosive event. It was a slow, calculated execution, and it began with a memory I had tried to bury. My college graduation. After the fiasco with my promised tuition money, my father must have felt a pang of guilt because he offered to throw me a huge graduation party at the house, a real celebration. He told me to invite Liam's whole family. "I want to do this right, Chloe," he'd said, a chance for everyone to meet. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe him. I was so excited. I bought a new dress. Liam's parents, his brother, and his uncle Robert all rearranged their schedules and made the 2-hour drive to Allentown. They were excited to finally be welcomed into my family home. The day of the party, as Liam and I were driving from Philly, my phone rang. It was Megan. Her voice was dripping with a fake theatrical panic. "Chloe, oh my God, you're not going to believe this," she began. "Dad just got a call. It's an emergency. One of his biggest clients in New York, a total whale, is having a complete meltdown. Dad has to get on a train right now. He feels absolutely terrible, but we have to cancel the party. There's just no way. The silence in the car was deafening. My voice was barely a whisper. Cancel it? Megan, Liam's entire family is almost there. Can't he just go tomorrow? Her response was sharp like a slap. Don't be so selfish, Chloe. This is a multi-million-dollar account we're talking about. His career is a little more important than a party, don't you think? And then she hung up. I felt the blood drain from my face. Humiliation. Hot, stinging humiliation washed over me. Liam pulled the car over. He didn't say anything, just put his arm around me as I started to cry. We had to call his family and tell them what happened. Tell them to turn around. But his father, Henry, wouldn't hear of it. No, he said, his voice firm over the phone. We're not turning around. We're coming to celebrate our daughter-in-law. We'll figure something out. When we arrived at my childhood home, it was dark, empty. A hollow monument to another broken promise. We just stood there on the porch when Liam's family pulled into the driveway. His mother, Laura, didn't ask what happened. She just walked up and wrapped me in the tightest hug, the kind of hug I hadn't felt since my own mom passed away. Henry looked at the dark house, then looked at Liam, a silent understanding passing between them. All right, he said, clapping his hands together. Change of plans. Everyone, back in the cars. I know a place. They drove us to a high-end steakhouse downtown, a place I'd only ever seen in magazines. Henry had apparently called ahead from the road. A private room was waiting for us. They had bought a cake from a bakery that said, "Congratulations, Chloe, we're so proud." They had a gift for me, a beautiful leather-bound journal. They toasted my achievements. They made me feel celebrated. They made me feel seen. Later that week, a friend of my father's, who didn't know about the drama, mentioned seeing my dad and Megan having a quiet dinner at a local restaurant the same night as my canceled party. There was no client. There was no emergency in New York. There was only a lie. A cruel, calculated lie designed to isolate me and remind me of my place. And that is the story I thought about, 2 weeks before my wedding day, when my phone rang and it was my father. I knew. Before he even spoke, I knew what was coming. His voice was awkward, uncomfortable. Chloe, he began, I need to talk to you about the wedding. He told me Megan was being thrown a huge career achievement party by her firm. He told me it was the same day as my wedding. An unfortunate coincidence, he called it. He told me he'd been thinking about the logistics, the timing, the drive. I don't think I can make it to the ceremony on time, he said, the words coming out in a rehearsed rush. This event is really important for Megan's career, and as her father, I need to be there for the whole thing. The room started to spin. I gripped the phone, my knuckles turning white. My voice came out flat, devoid of all emotion. You're choosing not to walk me down the aisle at my wedding. It's not about choosing, he said, his voice becoming defensive. He was a cornered animal. It's about practical timing. I can't be in 2 places at once. Megan's event is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. A once-in-a-lifetime thing. As if my wedding wasn't. And then he delivered the final fatal blow. The words that severed the very last thread of hope I had for him. Maybe you could ask Liam's father to walk you down the aisle, he suggested, as if it were a simple task, like asking someone to pass the salt. Or his uncle. I'm sure someone else can do it. Someone else. As if his role was just a placeholder. Interchangeable. Worthless. After I hung up the phone, I didn't cry. Not at first. I just sat there, in the middle of my living room, surrounded by seating charts and vendor contracts, and I felt a profound and terrifying emptiness. He hadn't just chosen Megan, he had actively unchosen me. He had looked at the most important day of my adult life and decided it was disposable. And that was the moment I realized that after all these years of trying, of achieving, of hoping, I was still that little girl sitting alone at the awards ceremony. I was still that graduate standing on the porch of an empty house. Nothing had changed. Nothing was ever going to change. At this point in the story, I honestly don't have the words to describe that feeling, that absolute betrayal. So, if you're feeling as angry and heartbroken as I was in that moment, do me a favor. Comment with one word that describes what my family did. But instead of shattering into a million pieces, something else happened. That emptiness began to fill with something else, something cold, something hard. It was rage, a quiet, focused rage. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a war. Liam found me about 20 minutes after the call ended. I was still sitting on the floor, phone lying beside me, staring at a wall covered in photos of us. Happy photos. Photos from hikes, from vacations, from quiet nights at home. A life I had built. A life that suddenly felt like it was made of glass. When he saw my face, he didn't even have to ask. He just knelt and pulled me into his arms, and that's when the dam broke. I sobbed. I cried for the little girl who sat alone at her award ceremony. I cried for the college graduate on the empty porch. And I cried for the bride whose own father had just told her she wasn't worth his time. Liam didn't say, "He'll come around," or, "Maybe it's a misunderstanding." He just held me, his own anger a quiet, solid presence at my back. He let me grieve for the father I had and for the father I had always wished for. The tears eventually stopped. The racking sobs quieted into a hollow ache in my chest. I pulled away from Liam and looked at him. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a chemical reaction. The years of hurt, of quiet disappointment, of making excuses for them, it all just stopped. The part of me that had spent a lifetime craving their approval, that hopeful little girl, finally went quiet. And in her place, something else rose. It was cold. It was clear. It was the absolute, unshakable certainty that this was the end. Enough. No more chances. No more benefit of the doubt. This was the last time they would ever have the power to hurt me like this. They will never change. The realization didn't feel sad anymore. It felt liberating. The pain was still there, a dull throb beneath the surface, but it was no longer in control. It had become fuel. Liam must have seen the change in my eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I'm not postponing the wedding," I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "I'm not rearranging my life around her manipulations one more time. That's exactly what she wants." He nodded slowly. "Okay, what do we do?" "We?" I looked at him, and for the first time since the call, I felt a flicker of warmth. "Always," he said. I got up from the floor, my movements deliberate. I walked over to our small home office, my sanctuary, and sat down at my desk. Liam followed, leaning against the doorframe, a silent sentinel. I didn't reach for the phone to call my father and plead. I didn't text Megan a string of angry accusations. I opened my laptop. The screen illuminated my face, and I saw a reflection I barely recognized. It was a woman with a plan. Emotion was a liability now. This required a strategy. My first move was to secure the perimeter, the wedding. This day was about me and Liam, and I refused to let it be defined by a gaping hole where my father should have been. I thought about his callous suggestion. Ask Liam's father. But that didn't feel right. Henry was wonderful, but he was Liam's dad. Then I thought of someone else. Someone who understood what it felt like to be an outsider. Someone who had always treated me with a quiet, profound respect. Liam's uncle, Robert. I found his number and called. He picked up on the second ring. "Chloe, How are you, my dear? Getting excited for the big day? My voice was thick with emotion, but I pushed through. Uncle Robert, I began. I have something to ask you. It's a bit unconventional. I told him everything. The phone call, the fake party, the years of little betrayals leading up to this moment. I didn't cry. I laid out the facts like I was presenting a case study at work. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Chloe, he finally said, his voice heavy. I am so sorry you are going through this. No child should ever be made to feel that way. Another pause. My own father, he continued, his voice softer, refused to come to my college graduation. He disapproved of my choice to study literature instead of going into the family business. Some wounds, they never fully heal, but we learn to build beautiful lives despite them. Tears pricked my eyes. He understood. He truly understood. Robert, I said, taking a breath. Liam's mother once told me that you walked her down the aisle when she married Henry, because her own father wouldn't. I was wondering, I would be so incredibly honored if you would consider doing the same for me. The emotion in his voice when he responded was overwhelming. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Chloe, he finally managed, his voice thick. I can't tell you what that means to me. It would be one of the greatest honors of my life. One problem solved. The gaping hole was filled, not with a substitute, but with someone who deserved to be there. Someone who had chosen to be family. My second move was about security. Long-term security. The secret I had been keeping, my freedom fund, was my most valuable asset. I had built it in secret, and I needed to make sure it stayed that way. Protected from any future attempts at manipulation or guilt trips. The next morning, I had a video call with my financial advisor, Mark. Mark, I said, getting straight to the point. I need to do a full review of all my assets and ensure there is a complete and total firewall between my finances and my family of origin. I want to make sure there are no accidental beneficiary designations, no joint accounts I've forgotten about, nothing. When it comes to my financial world, they no longer exist. Mark, ever the professional, didn't ask personal questions. He just nodded. Understood. We can set up what's called a blind trust for your main investment portfolio. It adds another layer of legal separation. We'll also review your will and power of attorney documents. Who do you want to designate? Liam, I said without hesitation. And his mother, Laura, as the alternate. And your next of kin contact information? Should be updated to Liam as well. As we went through the digital paperwork, clicking and signing, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. This was more than just managing money. This was me, officially, declaring my financial independence. It was a quiet, legal severing of ties they didn't even know existed. I was building my fortress, and the drawbridge was going up. My third move was the riskiest. It was strategic. It was about gathering intelligence. I knew Megan. I knew her lies always had holes. I just needed someone on the inside to see them. There was only one person in my extended family who had managed to stay neutral over the years. My cousin, Alex. He was my mom's nephew, a decent, straightforward guy who had always been kind to me. He was also one of the few people who Megan still bothered to invite to things, probably because he never challenged her. I sent him a text. It had to be casual, not an accusation, but a request. Hey Alex, hope you're doing well. Quick question. I know this is random, but Megan mentioned she's having a big work party on June 15th, the same day as my wedding. I know you're probably coming to the wedding, but if you happen to stop by her event first, would you mind just letting me know what it's like? I'm just curious about her big career achievement. No big deal either way. Can't wait to see you at the wedding. It was a carefully crafted message. It gave him a reason to be there. It planted a seed of curiosity without revealing my suspicions. It was a baited hook, dropped into the murky waters of my family's drama. Now, all I had to do was wait and see if he would bite. For the next 2 weeks, I was a machine. I threw myself into the final wedding preparations with a laser focus, final dress fitting, meetings with the photographer, assembling welcome bags. Liam and his family were my shield, deflecting any questions and surrounding me with unwavering support. I didn't speak to my father or Megan. They didn't try to contact me either. It was a silent, cold war. But underneath the flurry of activity, my mind was working. I was playing chess. My father and sister had made their move, a blatant, aggressive attack. They expected me to fall apart. They expected me to cancel, to cry, to beg. They expected a checkmate. They didn't realize that while they were playing checkers, I was setting up a whole new board. A board they didn't even know existed. And I was about to make my first move. I awoke on my wedding day to the soft Philadelphia sunlight streaming through the hotel suite window. There were no frantic calls, no drama, just the excited chatter of my bridesmaids, coffee, and a sense of calm that felt entirely alien and deeply welcome. As I was getting my makeup done, a text came through. It was from my father. I felt my stomach clench, but I opened it. "Good luck today," it read. "Megan's event starts at 11. If it wraps up early, I might be able to make the reception by 7 or 8. Save me some cake." Not a word of regret. Not an "I love you." Just a logistical update that placed my wedding firmly in the afterthought category. I didn't reply. I just handed the phone to my best friend, Zoe, who read it and shook her head in silent disgust. The morning passed in a beautiful blur. Laura, Liam's mom, came by and gave me a delicate silver bracelet. A single charm dangled from it, a paintbrush crossed with a pen. "To remind you of your creative spirit," she whispered. Later, Robert knocked on the door. He was already in his tuxedo, looking distinguished and kind. He handed me a small, beautiful vintage handkerchief with tiny blue flowers embroidered on it. "Something old, something blue," he said with a warm smile. It was my mother's. In that moment, surrounded by these small, thoughtful acts of love, the absence of my own family felt less like a wound and more like a quiet space that had finally been filled with something better. The ceremony was held on a beautiful garden terrace. As the string quartet began to play, the doors opened. Robert offered me his arm. He looked at me, not with the possessive pride I'd seen in other fathers, but with a simple, profound respect. "Ready?" he asked gently. I nodded, too emotional to speak. Walking down that aisle, seeing Liam's face lit up with a love so pure and unconditional, I knew with absolute certainty that this was right. This was my family. The man beside me, the man waiting for me, the people smiling in the crowd. This was the family I had chosen, and the family that had chosen me. The reception was everything I could have dreamed of. Laughter, heartfelt toasts, and a dance floor that was never empty. I was dancing with Liam, lost in the music and the moment, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was my cousin, Alex. He looked apologetic and slightly frazzled. "Chloe, I am so sorry I'm late," he said, giving me a quick hug. "I stopped by Megan's thing first. I thought I could do both. But there's something you need to know." He guided me to a quieter corner of the ballroom. His expression was serious. "That party," he began, lowering his voice. "It wasn't a work event. It wasn't anything like what she told everyone." I kept my face neutral, but my heart started to pound. This was it. The hook was in the water. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, it was at her apartment," he said, looking completely baffled. "There were maybe 15 people there? Mostly her friends from the gym. There was no company banner, no speeches, no awards. I asked one of her coworkers about the big broker promotion, and she just looked at me like I was crazy. She had no idea what I was talking about. The validation was so intense it felt like a physical force. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overly sensitive. I was right. So she lied, I said, my voice flat. She lied about the whole thing. That's not all, Alex said, pulling out his phone. I don't feel good about this, Chloe, but you deserve to see it. He showed me a text exchange between him and Megan from months ago, the messages I had prompted him to look for. And there it was, in black and white. Megan explicitly admits her plan. I need to force Dad to choose, one of her texts read. If I can't get Mom's $250K inheritance first, I'm at least going to make sure I'm still his favorite. I just stared at the screen. The casual cruelty of it. The mention of my mother's money. It took my breath away. Does Dad know any of this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Alex shook his head. I don't think so. She had him completely wrapped around her finger all afternoon. I'm so sorry, Chloe. I should have said something sooner. You're saying something now, I said, giving him a grateful hug. That's all that matters. Thank you, Alex. I rejoined Liam on the dance floor, my mind racing. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. Now, all I had to do was wait for the king to walk into my trap. He arrived around 10:30 p.m. when the party was starting to wind down. I saw him hesitate at the entrance to the ballroom, a tall, awkward figure in a suit that looked like it had been thrown on in a hurry. He looked out of place, a stranger at his own daughter's wedding. Liam saw him too and squeezed my hand. Want me to run interference? He murmured. I shook my head. No, I need to do this. He made his way toward us, clutching a small gift bag. It was a pathetic excuse for a peace offering. Congratulations, he said, his voice stiff, as he leaned in for a hug that felt more like a business transaction. Sorry, I'm late. Megan's thing ran longer than expected. The casualness of it, the complete lack of awareness, it was almost impressive. I'm glad you could make it for the last hour of the reception, I replied, my voice sweet with a sarcasm that was completely lost on him. He glanced around the room, taking in the elegant decorations, the remnants of the wedding cake, and the happy guests. Looks like it was a nice wedding, he commented, as if he were reviewing a movie he'd missed. It was perfect, actually, I said. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. He finally thrust the gift bag toward me. This is from Megan and me. Thank you, I said, placing it on a nearby table without even looking at it. We walked to the still-open bar. As he ordered a scotch, he finally asked the question I knew was coming. The question that would spring the trap. So, he said, trying to sound casual, who ended up walking you down the aisle? The moment was here. Everything slowed down. I could feel Liam's steady presence beside me. I could see Alex watching from a nearby table, ready. I took a slow sip of my water, held my father's gaze, and delivered the first blow. Robert did, I said, my voice calm and clear. Liam's uncle. My father frowned, confused. The older gentleman in the navy tuxedo? The one who gave that toast earlier? I nodded. That's him. His face hardened. The disbelief in his voice was thick. You had a stranger walk you down the aisle? A stranger. The word dripped with condescension. He's not a stranger to me, I said, my voice gaining strength. He has been more of a father to me in the last 5 years than you have been in the last 15. His face flushed with anger. That's not fair, Chloe. I have always supported you. Have you? I challenged, and at that exact moment, as if on cue, Alex walked over. Uncle Richard, he said, his timing perfect. Glad you made it. I was just telling Chloe about Megan's party. My father turned to him, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Alex, What's this nonsense Chloe is saying about Megan's party being fake? Alex looked between us, playing his part beautifully. Oh, it wasn't fake, he said calmly. It just wasn't a work event. It was a small get-together at her apartment. That can't be right, my father insisted, his voice rising. Her firm was sponsoring it. It was for her broker promotion. I asked her colleague about it, Alex replied, his voice steady. There was no promotion, no company event. It was just a party. My father's face went from angry to confused. He looked like a man whose entire reality was starting to crumble. Before he could process it, I delivered the second, more powerful blow. It's true, Dad, I said. And Alex has proof of why she did it. Alex reluctantly, or so it seemed, pulled out his phone. I'm sorry, Uncle Richard, he said, but you need to see this. My father took the phone. He read the text messages, his face growing paler with every word. I watched him process the truth, the deliberate plan, the casual cruelty, the mention of my mother's money. He muttered, "This can't be right. Megan wouldn't do this." "She has been doing it for years," I said, my voice breaking with a truth that was years overdue. "She lied to you about my awards ceremony. She lied to you about my graduation party. She told you I didn't want you to walk me down the aisle because it would be embarrassing." He looked up from the phone, genuinely shocked. She told me you only asked out of obligation." Just then, Robert, seeing the confrontation, began to walk over. My father saw him approaching, and something inside him snapped. The confusion morphed back into pure, misdirected rage. He pointed a shaking finger at Robert. "So you replaced me," he spat. "You let some random old man take my place." Robert stopped a few feet away, his expression calm but firm. "Mr. Evans, I believe," he said, extending a hand that my father ignored. "It's good to finally meet you." "I don't understand why my daughter needed a stranger at her wedding," my father snarled. "Dad, stop it," I hissed, mortified but also strangely detached. This was just a pathetic, predictable meltdown. And then Robert delivered the final devastating checkmate. He looked my father directly in the eye, his voice not loud but carrying across the quiet room. "Sir," he said with a simple, unassailable dignity, "perhaps the person who walks a woman down the aisle shouldn't be the man who gave her life, but the man who has shown up for her in it." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. A father shows up. The truth of that statement hit my father like a physical blow. The anger drained from his face, replaced by a ghastly, hollow look of shame. He stared at Robert. He stared at me. He looked at Liam standing protectively by my side. And in that moment, he saw it all. The years of failure. The monumental mistake he had just made. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just shook his head, turned abruptly, and strode out of the ballroom, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt quiet. The battle was over, and I had won. The moment my father walked out, the spell was broken. The remaining guests, who had witnessed the tense exchange, suddenly seemed to remember how to breathe. The band hesitantly started playing again. Laura, Liam's mom, was at my side in an instant, her hand a warm, steady presence on my arm. "Don't let this overshadow your beautiful day," she said, her voice fierce. "You and Liam deserve all the happiness in the world." And she was right. We rejoined the party for the sparkler send-off, running through a tunnel of light and laughter toward our waiting car. As we drove away, leaving the beautiful hotel and the ugly drama behind, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt quiet. The truth was finally out in the open, and whatever happened next, I wasn't alone. I had a new family, my real family. Liam and I spent 2 blissful, sun-drenched weeks in Greece for our honeymoon. We explored ancient ruins, sailed on the impossibly blue Aegean Sea, and ate incredible food. For the first time in my life, I felt completely disconnected from the weight of my past. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the entire trip. No calls, no emails, no checking social media. Just me, my new husband, and the promise of a future that was entirely our own. It was a necessary reset, a cleansing of the soul. But I knew reality was waiting for me back in Philadelphia. I just didn't realize how loud and desperate it would be. The moment we walked back into our apartment, the dam of their panic broke. I turned my phone off airplane mode, and it began to vibrate uncontrollably, a frantic buzzing seizure in my hand. A deluge of notifications flooded the screen. 37 missed calls, 19 voicemails, 52 text messages. The vast majority were from my father. Liam took our bags into the bedroom while I stood in the living room and cautiously began to listen to the voicemails. They were a chronological documentation of a man's complete and utter meltdown. The first message, left the night of the wedding, was angry and confused. "Chloe, pick up the phone. I went to Megan's apartment. We need to talk about what that cousin of yours said. This is a misunderstanding." The second voicemail from the next morning was completely different. The anger was gone, replaced by a dawning horror. "Chloe, it's Dad. I spoke with Megan again. She admitted it. All of it. The party. The graduation. The things she told me you said. Oh God. Chloe, what have I done? Please call me." The messages that followed became progressively more desperate, more pathetic. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I was blind. I was a fool. I let her poison me against you. I missed my only daughter's wedding. I can never forgive myself. Please, just let me know you're okay." By the final voicemail, left just a few days before our return, his voice was raw, broken. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he choked out. "I know that. But I hope someday you'll give me a chance to try and make this right. I'm so sorry, Chloe." It was a tidal wave of regret, a desperate attempt to undo a lifetime of neglect in a few frantic messages. Part of me felt a cold, hard sense of vindication. He finally saw the truth. But another deeper part just felt sad. Sad for all the years we had lost. Sad for the man who was so easily manipulated because it was easier than facing his own failures as a father. Then I opened the text messages. Sandwiched between my father's desperate pleas was a single, long message from a number I almost didn't recognize. It was Megan, and it was pure, unadulterated venom. There was no apology. There was no regret. There was only blame. "I can't believe you did this," the message began. "You just had to have your perfect little day, didn't you? You couldn't stand that Dad was finally proud of me for once. You've always been jealous, always trying to make me look bad." I had to read that line twice. Me? Jealous of her? The delusion was breathtaking. The message continued, a masterclass in gaslighting and victim blaming. "You've ruined everything. Dad is a complete wreck. He's barely speaking to me. He's talking about cutting me off financially, all because of the lies you and Alex cooked up. You turned him against me, your own sister." And then came the emotional manipulation I had been expecting my whole life, the guilt trip she had been perfecting since we were kids. "How could you do this to me? After everything I did for this family, I was the one who was here after Mom died. I was the one who cooked and cleaned and took care of Dad while you were off living your own life. I sacrificed for this family. And this is how you repay me? By destroying it?" Destroying it. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. She wasn't just rewriting history. She was trying to burn the library. She saw herself as the martyr, the dutiful daughter, and me as the selfish, destructive villain. She had lived in her constructed reality for so long that she was completely incapable of seeing the truth. Her version of events was the only one that mattered. In her story, her lies were justified, and my pain was just an inconvenient side effect. I sat on the couch, the phone heavy in my hand. Liam came and sat beside me, wrapping his arm around my shoulders. He read Megan's text over my shoulder, and I felt his entire body tense with a silent rage. "What are you going to do?" he finally asked. I thought about firing back. I thought about sending her a screenshot of her own incriminating texts. I thought about listing every single betrayal, from the stolen tuition money to the fake graduation party to this final, pathetic attempt to cast herself as the victim. I could have torn her arguments to shreds. I could have destroyed her. But what would be the point? Arguing with someone who is committed to their own delusion is like trying to reason with a hurricane. You just get swept up in the chaos. She didn't want the truth. She wanted a fight. She wanted to drag me back down into the mud with her, to make this a messy, drawn-out drama where there were no clear heroes or villains. Just a broken family. And I was done. I was so done. So I did something else. Something quiet. Something final. I opened her contact information. I scrolled down. And I pressed, block this caller. Then I went to my email, found the messages from her, and marked them as spam. I went to my social media accounts and blocked her there too. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was the quiet, deliberate closing of a door. A door that had been letting in a cold, toxic draft for my entire life. Then I looked at the string of messages from my father. His panic, his desperation. It was a different kind of poison, one laced with regret and a lifetime of weakness. Blocking him felt too easy. Ignoring him felt like I was stooping to his level of avoidance. This required something different. This required boundaries. I took a deep breath and started to type a reply. Not a long, emotional essay. Just a few carefully chosen sentences. Sentences that would establish the new rules of engagement. Sentences that would take back the power he had held over me for so long. The power of his approval. The power of his disappointment. I was about to set the terms of my own peace, and he was either going to accept them or he was going to be left on the other side of the wall I was building. I let my father's voicemails and texts sit unanswered for a full week after we got back. It wasn't a game. It was a necessary silence. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to his chaos. I was letting him sit with the consequences of his own actions. I needed to approach this not from a place of raw emotion, but from the calm, strategic center I had found within myself. During that week, I focused on settling back into my life. My real life. Unpacking with Liam, returning to a job where I was respected, and reconnecting with the people who had shown up for me when it mattered. His messages continued to come in, each one a little more frayed around the edges. He was panicking. He had lost control of the narrative, and he didn't know how to function without it. Finally, when I felt ready, I sent him a short, simple text. "I will meet you for coffee. Saturday, 10 a.m. The Grindhouse Cafe in King of Prussia." It was a neutral location, halfway between his world and mine. I didn't say, "We need to talk." I didn't offer any emotional reassurance. It was a summons, not an invitation. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a small table in the corner, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him. He stood up awkwardly as I approached. He looked like he wanted to hug me, but I kept the table between us, a physical boundary he didn't dare cross. "Chloe," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for coming." I just nodded and sat down, my expression unreadable. I wasn't there to make this easy for him. "I don't even know where to begin," he stammered, wringing his hands. "I failed you. So completely. I was a terrible father." The old me would have rushed to comfort him. No, you weren't, Dad. It's okay. But the old me was gone. I just looked at him, my silence forcing him to continue. I let Megan. I let her get in my head. After your mother died, I was so lost. She stepped up, and it was easier to believe her version of things than to face my own grief, my own failures. I was a coward. He was finally saying the words I had needed to hear my entire life. But hearing them now, it didn't bring the relief I thought it would. It just felt late. I want to fix this, he said, his eyes pleading. I know I don't deserve it, but I want a second chance. I want to get to know the amazing woman you've become. I let his words hang in the air for a long moment. I thought about all the pain, all the years of feeling invisible. Then I took a slow breath and laid down the new law. My law. I hear your apology, I began, my voice even and calm. And I accept it, as an acknowledgement of what happened. But an apology doesn't erase the damage. I leaned forward slightly. So here are the terms. If you want any kind of relationship with me moving forward, it will be on my terms. Not yours. Not Megan's. Mine. He just stared, listening. First, I said, holding up a finger. We will never speak of Megan again. I have removed her from my life completely. If you choose to have a relationship with her, that is your business. But you will not bring her up to me. You will not try to mediate. You will not ask me to reconsider. As far as I am concerned, she does not exist. Do you understand? He swallowed hard and nodded. Yes. Second, I continued, our relationship will be rebuilt from the ground up. Slowly. There will be no more assumptions. No more showing up unannounced. No more financial entanglements. It starts with phone calls. Maybe, in time, it becomes more. But that will be up to my discretion. It will be based on your consistent actions, not your promises. Okay, Chloe. Whatever you say. And third, I said, my voice dropping slightly, making sure he understood the weight of this final point. You will never, ever again make me feel like I am the second choice. You will respect me. You will respect my husband. You will respect my life. If you can't do that, then this is the last conversation we will ever have. For the first time in my life, I wasn't asking. I was telling. The power dynamic had shifted, permanently. I had taken all of my pain and forged it into an unbreakable set of boundaries. I had chosen myself. This was a critical moment. If you support this decision, this powerful stand she's taking, drop a flexed bicep emoji in the comments to send her some strength on this journey. He looked down at his coffee cup, his shoulders slumped. He looked like a defeated man. I understand, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I'll do whatever it takes. I stood up. I have to go, I said. I'll call you in a few weeks. I didn't wait for a reply. I just turned and walked out of the cafe, leaving him alone at the table to sit with the new reality he had helped create. I didn't feel angry or triumphant. I just felt free. The heavy chains of obligation and hope had finally been broken. That night, the contrast between the family I was born into and the family I had built could not have been more stark. Liam and I hosted a small dinner at our apartment, just a casual get-together. We invited his parents, Laura and Henry, his uncle Robert, and my cousin Alex. Our apartment was filled with the easy laughter and warmth that I had always craved as a child. We were all in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and drinking wine, when Henry, Liam's dad, raised his glass. I want to propose a toast, he said, his voice booming with affection. To Chloe, for showing us all what true strength and grace under pressure look like. We are so damn proud to officially call you our daughter. Laura, my mother-in-law, came over and wrapped me in a hug. We always have been, sweetheart, she whispered. Later, as we were sitting around the dinner table, Robert caught my eye from across the room and gave me a small, knowing nod. A nod that said, "You did it. You stood your ground." Alex, my cousin, who had been the catalyst for the truth coming out, seemed more relaxed and happy than I had ever seen him, finally free from the toxic triangle of our family. This was my tribe. These were the people who showed up. The ones who didn't need a blood relation to offer unconditional love and support. They weren't a replacement for the family I had lost. They were an upgrade. They were proof that sometimes the most beautiful families aren't the ones we are born into, but the ones we dare to build for ourselves. They didn't see me as the sensitive one or the second choice. They just saw me, Chloe. And that was more than enough. A year has passed since the wedding. And in that year, everything changed. Liam and I are no longer in our small city apartment. We're standing on a dusty plot of land about 30 minutes outside of Philly, looking at the blueprints for the house we're building. Our house. Bought with our money. The foundation was poured last week. A solid, concrete promise of the future we're creating together. At work, I was promoted again. I'm a senior director now, leading my own department. Life is peaceful. It's a quiet, sturdy kind of happiness I never knew was possible. The fallout for my family was swift and severe. After the wedding, my father kept his word. He told me in one of our first tentative phone calls that he had confronted Megan not just about the lies, but about her financial dependency. He cut her off. Completely. No more rent payments, no more car insurance, no more safety net. From what I've heard through my cousin Alex, Megan had a rude awakening. She had to sell the BMW her dad bought her. She moved into a much smaller, less glamorous apartment. She actually has to work now, really work, to pay her own bills. The golden child was finally forced to stand on her own 2 feet, and apparently, she's finding them very wobbly. As for my father, he's trying. He really is. He started going to therapy to deal with the grief he'd been avoiding for over a decade. He's rebuilding our relationship according to my terms. The calls are regular. He asks about my life, my work, my happiness. And he actually listens to the answers. He's been a quiet, respectful guest at a few of Liam's family gatherings, making a genuine effort to get to know the people who stepped up when he stepped away. The healing is slow. It's fragile. But for the first time, it feels real. I haven't spoken to Megan since blocking her number. About 6 months ago, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was from her. It was a long, rambling message. Tucked inside the paragraphs of self-pity and blame, there was something that almost resembled an apology. A weak, "I'm sorry for how things turned out." It wasn't the genuine, soul-bearing apology I once thought I needed, but it was, perhaps, the best she was capable of. I read it, and then I deleted it without replying. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't about accepting a poor apology. It's about accepting that you may never get the one you deserve and choosing to move on anyway. Thanksgiving was at our new, half-built house. We set up tables in the large, open space that would one day be our living room. My chosen family was there, filling the space with warmth and laughter. Laura and Henry, Robert and Alex. And for the first time at a major holiday, my father was there too, a guest in my life. As we went around the table, sharing what we were thankful for, my father's turn came. His voice broke as he looked at me across the table. "I'm thankful for second chances," he said simply. "And for a daughter whose capacity for forgiveness teaches me what it means to be a better man." When my turn came, I looked around at the faces gathered in my home. My loving husband, the family that embraced me without question, the cousin who chose truth over loyalty, and the father who was finally learning to show up. And I realized the profound truth of my new reality. the person who walks you down the aisle shouldn't just be someone who shares your DNA. It should be someone who has walked beside you through life's challenges, supporting you, loving you, and choosing you unconditionally. I lost the father I thought I had on my wedding day, but in doing so, I found a family for a lifetime. My journey has taught me that your value doesn't come from your family's approval. It comes from within. It's taught me that financial independence isn't about being rich, it's about being free. And most importantly, it's taught me that the most beautiful families are often the ones we create through love and choice, not just the ones we're born into. This whole experience has been a painful but powerful lesson. And it makes me wonder about all of you watching. Have you ever had to set difficult, painful boundaries with the people who were supposed to love you most? How did you navigate those heartbreaking conversations? Let me know your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice and building a life on your own terms. Thank you for listening.